Today here in Canberra. This is the Ngunnawal people land which we're on today, and so I want to thank them, recognize them, and I want to recognize the past, present, and future traditional owners. Okay, today I'm going to cut this. Obviously, we've run out a little bit of the time, so I'll keep this to 1 hour. Maybe that's better anyway. I have several things that I wanted to talk to you about. One being Australia and my work in remote Australia. Go ahead.
他说今天首先呢，他就是站在这块土地上面，他首先用澳大利亚的这个传统，因为他们等于是用了土著人他们的土地，所以他首先感谢这块土地，我们所在的堪培拉这块土地以前是Ngunnawal，就是土著人他们的这片土地，所以他首先要表示一些感谢和对这些土著人他们的一个敬意。然后之后，因为今天我们临时改变了这个行程，本来是2个小时的这个讲座，现在变成了1个小时，所以我们长话短说，现在直接就进入。
I think what I might do is just quickly give you a real brief background in relationship to who I am, where I've been, and what I'm trying to do in the world. And I do say the world because we do live in this global society, so therefore that's what I work within. I have a bachelor's degree in architecture, a master's degree in project management, and a PhD in architecture. I also have a few other degrees, but they're not relevant here today. What I've tried to do is that my philosophy is that I'm trying to help the poorest of the poor in the world and put them into housing. I look for people who want to help themselves, and if they want to help themselves, then therefore I go there and try to run training programs and encourage them. I spent 10 years working in Africa. I worked in 23 countries. I put about 30,000 homes on the ground.
他说：“首先呢，我就是今天有几个小主题。第一个就是简要的介绍一下我自己。那么就是长话短说，我的名字叫做 Steve Burroughs。那么我个人拥有了几个就是很多学位。最主要的学位呢，我的博士学位是在建筑学这方面。那么我终身的目标就是想要帮助全世界，因为我工作在全世界的很多国家。那我最主要的目标想要帮助穷人，尤其那些没有房子居住的人，让他们建造他们自己的房子。那我本人用了10年的时间在非洲，走遍了非洲的23个国家，帮助了非洲的一些的穷苦的人民，建立了大概一共300 houses.
30,000.
30,000. 他建了3万个房子在非洲的那片国土上。
Okay. So to kick off, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about remote Australia and some of the work that I've done in remote Australia. Now, most of the people have no idea what it's like in remote Australia. It's extremely hot. It certainly gets in the high 40s. It's fairly cold in the desert, and designing or trying to put housing on the ground for the climatic conditions is very difficult. In relationship to that, we always have infrastructure problems. So we have sewage problems, water problems, power problems. Some of the communities are paying somewhere in excess of 40 cents per kilowatt. In Canberra, we're paying 12 cents per kilowatt hour. So it's very expensive.
说在澳大利亚，大家可能没有任何概念，澳大利亚的边远地区是什么样子的？它多数都是一些沙漠，所以沙漠它们就有一些很典型的沙漠气候，就是极冷和极热的两种气候分化。那么在那边进行施工建筑的话，很多设施问题是最大的，在我们建筑中发生的主要的问题。那么主要是水源，还有他们的电力和他们的排污水的这方面，他们的几大问题。那么最高的温度在沙漠可能达到40多度。那么还有，并且呢，就是他们说在电这方面基本上在边远地区是40分，可能4毛钱 堪培拉就好很多，是1毛2一度电。
Okay. What you're looking at here is a very simple building. It's 50 square meters. It's not huge in Australian standards, but it's quite adequate. These are the houses I was talking about. I've put about 30,000 of these houses myself. Probably the total number would be somewhere around 300,000 or 400,000 throughout Africa, and some here in Australia.
这个房子呢，就是他们最普通的一个典型的他们建的这种房子。这种房子大概是在50平米左右，可能就是一种标准的像我们这样的人居住的。他在澳大利亚已经建了很多了，并且在非洲建了更多。
I have a real challenge in that a lot of the indigenous people that I work with are illiterate. They virtually can't read or write. So therefore, all the training has to be very simple and easy. And you'll see that when I'm doing projects and when I'm developing manuals, it's very simple. And the other thing is that the problem that I run into is that sometimes there isn't necessarily a native word in their language that represents something that I ask them to look at or use, so therefore we have to make up a word, so it's quite complicated.
说因为他们所工作的这些边远地区的人，他们都是那种没有受过教育，大多数都是文盲，他们可能既不能读也不能写，所以和他们一起工作或者让他们学习怎么样建房子的话，就得需要用很多最简单的图纸或者示意图，而且还要他们要把所有的文字用到最简单的方法来表达出来，并且告诉用很多方法来表达一件事情。
Here we're looking at a very simple brick making a earth. I must specify to you that I use nothing but earth or mostly earth with all my houses. Some of you being engineers will understand that I'm getting usually somewhere around 7.5 to 11 megapascals on my blocks. I'm using lots of different types of stabilization agents, which I'm sure all of you are familiar with. Whatever's available. It might be coconut husk, it might be rice husk, it might be fly ash, or whatever it might be. And the other thing is that I have done testing all over the world, and also just the blending of soils. I can make a very strong brick. I don't know what your standards would be, but in Australia, all I need is 0.7 of a megapascal to build a 2.7 high wall. Is that too much?
Yeah, it's very hard for me though.
Okay.
And I will try. 所以他说，大家可能在座的都是工程师和建筑师，大家可能比我要专业，当然大家可能都能理解他什么意思。这个是他们做了一个最普通的制砖的这个制砖机，那么这个制砖机的原料就是土，那土坯，所以他说他最喜欢的就是用土来制成砖，然后来建房子。那他说他做的是 Pascal 是7.5到11这么多的 Pascal， 大家可能比我知道。而且他说有些人可能愿意，甚至能用就是椰子树或者是那些米这些东西或其他的东西来混成这种制砖，但是他最喜欢的就是用不同的土壤的那种土成分来制砖。对他来说，就是0.7的到2.7的这个 Pascal 来制成砖墙。
I'll just explain just as we go, so you can just explain as we go. I mean, here basically we're just looking at some mud bricks that we're making. Now, what I've discovered is that in other parts of the world and anywhere in the world that I've worked, and that is that I've done lots of rammed earth, but that requires formwork that some of you would be familiar with. I've also done compressed blocks, which requires a machine. And I have a little quick story I'll tell you about compressed earth blocks. I was working in Zimbabwe on a project.
他说这个就是大家可以看到这张图很简单，就是他们制砖的那是制砖的模型，他们这种是那种手动的，就人工做的。还有，当然如果 想要做很大合成的这种砖，集中起来的要用机器。他说他曾经在非洲的津巴布韦工作过，然后他在那边帮助人们来制砖墙。
So I tried some rammed earth, and what I discovered was when I went back to work the next day, someone had stolen the formers that we were using for the rammed earth and used it to build a house with. So I realized that wasn't very good.
他说他在非洲来做的时候，他施工的第一天，回家了以后，第二天回来发现很多砖，他们来准备用在第二天盖造过程中的这些砖被人偷了。后来他意识到这样不太妙。
And so then I decided that I would do compressed blocks, and we had a very simple little machine that would do one block at a time. And so I said to the locals, as soon as you've made 3,000 bricks, I'll come back and we'll build the first house. So I left them with the machine. I left them and told them how to do it. I showed them how to do it, spent a couple of weeks with them. I then went away and came back 3 months later to discover that there was no bricks on the ground.
他说他大概跟这些农民，就他在非洲工作的时候，他告诉这些人怎么来制砖，然后他就说这样的话我可以就是教给他们这些制砖的技艺。那这样的话，他说每个人你们只要做好了3000块砖，那这样的话我去出差一趟，我回来以后咱们就可以盖房子了。那么他这样用2周时间就来教出他们怎么样每一家人怎样子制砖。可是他走了3个月回来以后，发现谁家的地上都没有砖。
So what had happened was that the hippopotamus that lived in the lake, in Lake Kariba, came out every night to eat grass as they do, and decided that this big steel handle that was on this machine, he liked to scratch his butt with it. And what he did is he broke the handle off, so therefore the people couldn't make any blocks. Now, in remote communities like that, there is no such thing as power, and there's certainly no such thing as a welder. So therefore, that's why I converted to nothing but mud bricks.
他说，因为他留下来的这些制小型的工具和小型的仪器呢，放在那儿，因为在那个非洲最多的就是犀牛，那犀牛从水里经常夜里钻出来到这些农民家附近吃草，那么吃完草以后，他就可能觉得屁股很痒痒，然后他就找个什么东西可以来蹭一蹭，然后没想到就把他那个制砖的一个摇杆的杆给蹭断了，然后因为他们经常过来，所以在这样很艰苦的环境里头，那些人根本没有办法，没有其他的电能，什么都没有。